The bus from the city wheezed to a stop beside the shuttered feed store, and Dr. Theodore Marlin stepped onto the cracked asphalt that passed for the main street of Maple Hollow. Late October wind rattled the bare poplars and flung a handful of copper leaves at his coat. As if the town itself were testing whether he truly meant to stay. He had fled this place twice, once at 17 chasing a scholarship, and again more recently when a journal retraction became the lead headline on every science site in the country. Officially, he had misrepresented statistical significance. Unofficially, the board at Somnex Neurolabs called it sabotage. His access badges were revoked. Lawsuits swarmed like hornets. So he came home, the way a wave flattens back toward the sea. From the bus window he'd already noted changes. A new mural of a cornucopia on the hardware store, solar panels on the church roof, LED street lamps that flickered dully in the afternoon gloom. Yet Maple Hollow was mostly the same. One traffic light, one diner, and every house painted in shades of white that looked gray by November. The first person to notice him was Marjorie Pugh, crossing from the post office with her armful of envelopes. Theo would have preferred any other witness. Marjorie taught English at the high school. Once, she had written his recommendation letters with unrestrained pride. Now she stopped dead, eyes wide, and the envelope slid from her grasp like wounded birds. "You," she said, no greeting, no polite preface. "You did this." Theo bent to retrieve her mail. "Good to see you too, Mrs. Pugh." She flinched as if his voice were a bruise being pressed. "We don't want you here, Dr. Marlin. We have enough trouble sleeping." She marched away before he could respond. Trouble sleeping. He'd read that phrase repeatedly in forum posts and local bulletins while doom-scrawling through the aftermath of his disgrace. But trouble sleeping would be an understatement, he suspected. He shouldered his suitcase and headed for his mother's house at the far end of Pine Street. Each window he passed seemed to contain a face half hidden behind lace curtains, wary, resentful, even afraid. He tried, and failed, to remember the last time Maple Hollow had been united by anything except the autumn chili cooker. A patrol car rolled to a halt beside him. Deputy Kara Doyle leaned out, elbows on the window frame. She had been his lab partner in freshman chemistry. Now the sheriff's star glittered on her parka. "I thought the bus station's platform said no loitering," she said, but her attempt at lightness fell flat. "I'm walking," Theo answered. "Not loitering. You might consider turning around." He met her eyes. "That bad?" Kara sighed, parking the cruiser and stepping out. "How much do you know?" "Only rumors. Every damn night," she said. "Same dream for every person in town. Starts at exactly 2:14 a.m. People who go to bed early, people pulling night shifts, they all nod off at 2:14, whether they want to or not, and when they wake, they've dreamed the same thing." "What dream?" "A beach. Black sand. You're there, wearing your Somnex lab coat. You've got something in your hand, looks like a tuning fork made of glass. You tap it on a child's forehead and then walk into the water. The kid counts backward from 100, and when it reaches 0, everyone jolts awake." Theo felt blood drain from his face. The device Kara described was not public knowledge. It was a prototype he had sketched, but never built. A quantum-tuned resonator, designed to entrain neuronal oscillations across multiple brains. Coordinated dreaming could dream a literal hive mind. Exactly the sort of overreaching concept that had led to his downfall. "The town thinks I did this on purpose?" he asked. Kara closed the cruiser door and fell into step beside him. "They don't think, Theo. They know you're in every one of their nightmares." They reached the Marlin house. Once white, now tinged green by years of neglect. His mother had died the previous winter. He hadn't made it to the funeral, trapped in depositions. Theo unlocked the door and entered stale silence. Dust motes wheeled through the dim hallway, illuminated by a single beam from the attic window. Kara remained on the porch. "There's a public forum at the Grange tonight, 7 sharp. Folks want answers. If you're not there, I can't guarantee your safety." He almost laughed. Maple Hollow, where seniors baked pies for the volunteer fire department, now threatening vigilante justice. but the look on Kara's face urged caution. "I'll be there," he said. After she left, Theo dropped his suitcase in the kitchen and rummaged through cabinets. The refrigerator was unplugged. Nothing edible remained. He wasn't hungry anyway. He sat at the table where his mother used to grade spelling tests and pulled his laptop from its sleeve. No internet. The service bill had clearly lapsed. He groaned, pocketed a flash drive, and climbed to the attic. Cartons of childhood debris crowded under the eaves. Geology club ribbons, baseball gloves, early circuitry projects soldered crookedly onto breadboards. In the corner sat a trunk marked Somnex Confidential in red tape. He hadn't known his mother kept it. Inside were notebooks filled with equations and mind maps. Page after page detailed his abandoned concept of collective REM induction cry. He remembered staying up until dawn scribbling these ideas when his confidence was still ferocious, when he believed neurocoherence could usher in empathy and world peace. He flipped to the final pages, those written just before the retraction scandal. A scribble caught his eye. Field test in low inference zone. Rural pop. Less than 2,000. Evaluate ambient harmonic resonance via water tower. Below that, coordinates. Maple Hollow's coordinates. "No," he whispered, heartsick. He had spoken the words aloud in board meetings, but he'd never greenlit a field test. At least he didn't think he had. His superior, Dr. Andrew Scaife, might have bypassed him. Theo pulled his phone and scrolled through cached emails, praying some records still existed in local storage. A message surfaced, dated 6 months earlier. "Theo, regarding your prototype, I've arranged real-world data acquisition. Your hometown meets every criterion. Don't fret about consent. We'll utilize passive spectral entrainment from the decommissioned transmitter you mentioned. When the results roll in, the board will regret doubting us. Hope you don't mind a little poetic justice." The transmitter. The old AM station on Ridge Hill had burned down years ago, but its antenna tower still loomed. And the water tower, smack in the center of town, fully metallic, a giant conductor. It would be trivial to retrofit a pulsed RF array and bathe Maple Hollow in the frequencies CRI required. 214 AMA, that phase of the Earth's Schumann resonance, lined up neatly with alpha-theta transitions. Scaife hadn't merely stolen Theo's theory, he was using Theo's birthplace as a clandestine lab, and using Theo's likeness within the induced dream as psychological camouflage. Horror metastasized into resolve. If Scaife had built a driver unit somewhere near the water tower, it could be shut down. This nightmare wasn't supernatural. It was engineering. Engineering he understood. The Grange Hall sat behind the library, a squat cedar building that smelled of lemon oil and resentment. At 7:00 p.m. every folding chair was filled, farmers in seed company caps, teachers clutching thermoses, teenagers pressed into corners by frantic parents. On stage, Councilwoman Ellen Weir fidgeted with a clipboard. When Theo entered, the human murmur dropped into a hiss of recognition. Kara stood near the rear wall. She gave a small nod, as if to say, "You made your bed, now lie in it." Councilwoman Weir struck the microphone. "Dr. Marlin has agreed to address us." Theo walked to the podium under a barrage of stares. The dreamer's beach might be imaginary, but he could feel the undertow now, pulling him under. "I understand you're frightened," he began. "I am too. I did not design a weapon, nor did I intentionally subject you to any experiment, but I believe I know who did and how." A hand shot up, Pastor Leland. "Do you deny that you appear in our dream each night?" "I do not," Theo replied. "But appearance is not evidence of guilt. Whoever orchestrated this used my likeness to point suspicion my way. That's why I'm here, to fix it." Murmurs. Someone shouted, "You better fix it tonight!" Others echoed. Theo raised his voice. "I need unrestricted access to the water tower and the old AM transmitter on Ridge Hill. Whatever device is driving the dream will be located at one or both sites. If I can turn it off before 2 a.m., the nightmare should cease." Silence, broken only by the whirring space heater at stage right. Then Kara stepped forward. "I'll escort him. Anyone object?" A dozen people started to protest, but she rested her hand on her holster, and the room sagged into uneasy consent. By 9:30 p.m., clouds scudded across a gibbous moon as Kara's cruiser bounced along the rutted service road to the water tower. The tower itself gleamed dull silver, 20 meters tall, crowned by a catwalk. On the access door hung a new brass padlock, shiny against peeling paint. Kara keyed her radio. "Chief, we're at Site 1. Padlock looks store-bought, not municipal issue." She entered the call and nodded to Theo, who produced a tension wrench and pick from a pouch. "Old lab habit," he muttered. The lock yielded in seconds. Inside, iron stairs spiraled up the column. Halfway, an acrid electrical smell prickled their nostrils. At the top, under the tank, stood a suitcase-sized metal box riveted to a beam, cables snaking outward like ivy to antennas bolted around the catwalk. Blue LEDs pulsed in a heartbeat rhythm, 1.25 hertz, the border of delta waves. Theo crouched, palms sweating. The casing bore Solnek's logo. "This is it," he said. 2 toggle switches sat beside a keypad. Likely there was a remote failsafe and tamper triggers. Kara asked, "Can you shut it down without frying your brain?" "Maybe," he said, "but we still need to check the transmitter on Ridge Hill in case there's a backup." He inspected the device's ports. A USB diagnostics jack blinked orange. He jammed in his flash drive running a patch he'd coded years ago, an override that instructed any CRI firmware to enter maintenance sleep. The LED slowed, then dimmed. "Good?" Kara asked. Theo wasn't sure. The unit could reactivate at 2:14 when its master clock dictated. "We've bought time," he said, unhooking cables, tossing them over the railings so they dangled uselessly. At the base of the tower, a pickup's headlights suddenly speared through darkness. Gravel crunched. The truck stopped 10 yards away. Engine idled. The driver's door opened, and Dr. Andrew Scaife stepped out, trench coat snapping in the wind like wings. "I expected you sooner, Theo," he called, voice amphitheater loud. "Didn't Peggy's old house give you nightmares too?" Theo advanced. "You psychopath. These are human beings, not lab rats." Scaife laughed softly. "Rats dream, humans dream. Why privilege one species? Collective RIM is the next step of evolution. Your sentimental attachment to this town made it the perfect field site. Low EM noise, high sociogenetic homogeneity. Frankly, you should thank me for proving," Theo rumbled over Ridge Hill. Theo kept walking until they were face to face. Kara hovering behind him, palm on her service weapon. "You're turning it off," Theo said. "Now." Scaife shook his head. "Redundant nodes, old friend. Disable 1, 3 more merrily. In 20 minutes the system auto-calibrates and overrides your sabotage." He gestured at the sky. "And when phase 2 hits, they won't just dream. They'll obey." Kara drew her gun. "Hands where I can see them." Scaife complied, smirking. "Deputy, you must have enjoyed the dream a little, standing on infinite shore, counting down to a future where no one lies or kills, because no one can." "Shut up," she snapped. Theo's mind raced. If nodes were redundant, they could be networked via line-of-sight microwave. The antenna on Ridge Hill was the master clock, but removing it physically could take hours. There was another way. Overload. Push an amplitude spike so high the safety capacitors blew across every node simultaneously. He turned to Kara. "I need his truck battery, jumper cables, and about a dozen road flares." Kara raised an eyebrow but holstered her pistol. "Explain on the way." Scaife chuckled, apparently delighted. "Going to play Prometheus? Feed the town fire?" "Stay quiet," Kara warned, cuffing him to the tower's ladder. Minutes later, Theo and Kara had scavenged supplies. They climbed again to the device. Theo wired the truck battery across the input lines, connecting flares in parallel as resistive loads. The crude circuit would convert DC surge into a broad-spectrum EM pulse, a dirty, improvised kill switch. Once lit, the flares would ignite magnesium and overload the amplifier within seconds. "Stand back," he said. Kara retreated to the stairwell. White light roared, bathing them in skeletal shadows. He plunged the burning stick into the open junction box. Sparks fountained. The LEDs spiked bright white, then died. A smell of scorched insulation filled the air. Below, Scaife shouted curses. Theo scrambled down the ladder as blue arcs sizzled overhead. He and Kara sprinted for the cruiser. Behind them, the device popped like fireworks, then fell silent. "Now Ridge Hill," Kara said, flooring the accelerator, but halfway up the winding road, Theo's watch vibrated. 2:14 a.m. The dash clock confirmed. The cruiser's engine coughed, as if drowsy. Kara slapped her cheeks to stay alert, but her lids drooped. Theo felt it too, a velvet fog encroaching on consciousness, pulling him toward the dream shore. He bit his tongue until he tasted iron. "Stay awake," he muttered. He fumbled for the radio. "Dispatch, this is Doyle, request." Static. The streetlights through the windshield winked out sequentially. At the summit, the transmitter tower loomed, silhouetted against lightning. Its dishes glowed faintly red, backup power cells breathing. Theo lurched from the car, legs rubbery. Each step became a slog through invisible mud. The tower gate stood ajar. Someone, maybe Scape's hired techs, had abandoned it in haste. He reached the control shed. Inside, a 19-inch rack pulsed with amber lights. He recognized the signal modulation pattern. His earlier overload might have fried subordinate nodes, but the master system had switched to insulated battery arrays, isolating itself from surges. Smart. Ruthless. Kara stumbled in, eyes glassy. "Can't fight sleep," she whispered, sliding to the floor. Theo knelt beside her. "I'll finish this." She gripped his sleeve. "You too, Theo. They'll need you awake to see it's over." He nodded, though he wasn't sure. He searched the rack for a manual power cutoff. Nothing. The batteries were welded into steel cages. Severing them physically would require tools and time he didn't have. He opened a service panel. Inside, a row of fuse cartridges rated 125 volts, 40 AAMPs. He could create a short, but that risked lethal arc flash. Then he saw a small toggle labeled Local Admin Dream Feed. It was connected to a headset port. Scaife must have used it to pilot the collective dream, injecting his chosen imagery. An idea bloomed, dangerous, desperate. He could enter the dream intentionally, push a kill command directly into the network's shared cognitive layer. Theo had designed that backdoor himself for field diagnostics, never imagining it might be used for sabotage. Visualize the right sigil and the code would interpret it as halt. But to inject the command, he would need to become the broadcaster, sacrificing his exit path. The collective would stabilize on his mind as the new master clock. When it collapsed, he might be trapped in Delta coma indefinitely. Outside, thunder boomed. Time to choose. Theo donned the headset, clipped the biometric leads to his temples, and flipped the toggle. A chime sounded like a distant chapel bell, and the world dissolved. He stood on black sand under a lidless sky. Hundreds of Maple Hollow residents lined the shore, eyes vacant, faces turned toward him. Children counted backward in unison. 92, 91. Across the ink-dark water, a silver figure waited Scaife's eidolon. The false prophet of the dream. Theo waded toward it. Cold surf licked his knees, then waist. The figure raised the glass tuning fork. Theo remembered the command sigil. 3 concentric circles around a downward arrow. He pictured it with every neuron, carving it into the sky with thought alone. The clouds complied, swirling into rings, arrow lancing toward the sea. As the last circle sealed, the fork in the silver figure's hand cracked, splintered, and the dreamscape shuddered. People gasped, as if surfacing from deep water. The countdown ceased. Waves erupted into white columns, erasing the beach, the sky, everything. Theo opened his eyes in the shed, or tried to. His eyelids wouldn't lift. He couldn't feel his body, only hear the distant beep of equipment winding down. Boots thudded, hands unclipped the headset. Kara's voice called his name, muffled as though through cotton. "Heart steady," she said, relief quivering. "He's in there." But he couldn't answer. He floated in velvet dark, conscious but paralyzed. Morning arrived slowly. The dream did not return. Residents reported dreamless sleep for the first time in weeks. They celebrated with casseroles on the church lawn, laughter cautious but real. In Maple Hollow's tiny clinic, Theo lay attached to monitors. Doctors labeled his condition idiopathic locked-in syndrome. Unaware of the choice he had made, Kara sat beside him, reading newspapers aloud. Somex executive arrested. Whistleblower saves hometown. Lawsuit avalanche. When visitors left, Kara leaned close. If you can hear me, blink. His eyelid twitched once. She smiled. We'll find a way to pull you back. Meanwhile, sleep easy, Theo. The bad dream is over. He drifted again, weightless. Not the beach, not the nightmare. Something quieter, as if the town's collective psyche, finally freed, whispered lullabies around him. He listened, and for the first time since stepping off the bus, he felt that Maple Hollow forgave him, and maybe, one day, he would forgive himself.